we are actually broadcasting live, so everyone behave. I'll try to behave also. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari 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 Shodananda Rajatana Dana Shodanandana Rajatana Dana Yamunatira Manachari Yamunatira Manachari Yamunatira Manachari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Sudananda Rajadanandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Haribo. So it's the day before Gaur Purnima. It's not actually Purnima. Devotees managed to get every vowel wrong in that word. It's actually long, short, long, and they do it anyway. It's a disaster phonetically. Purna means complete or full, just like Om Purnamada. Upanishad. So Purnima is the full moon. Ma is an abbreviation of Masa, the moon, and so Purnima is full moon. Whereas Purnim doesn't mean anything in Sanskrit. But Krishna knows what your intention is. Something tragic about trying to explain Sanskrit pronunciation. So, today we're going to read the Bhagavatam, translation and purports by Srila Prabhupada. We are in the second canto, second chapter, text 3. So, what we do is that first we talk about what the words mean, so when the devotees chant, they have an idea of what they're chanting. So, ata means for this reason, and you know the context, because the last verse was very important. Shabdasya hi brahmana esha pantha. Esha pantha, this is the path of Shabdasya, actually, which Shabda means sound, but also means the Vedas. So here we have a long A, Shabdasya, which means things related to the Vedas, such as Vedic rituals and injunctions. So Shabdasya hi Brahmana Esha, but this is the path of the Vedas, which Janamabir, merely by names, Jayati Dhira Partahi, that the intelligence meditates simply with names which are aparta, apartai, which means they have no artha, apa artha. The meaning is vacant, or the meaning is, or the purpose, the value of it is simply not there. Apartha is a synonym of anartha, as we explained yesterday. And so again, as I explained, I'm not going to give yesterday's class again, so don't panic if you were here yesterday. But the idea here is that the word nama is often used in the Bhagavatam to mean like something has no real substance. It's just a name. It's very much like what we would say in English, just a label. It's just a label. So nama beer, so mere names which have no ultimate meaning, like for example, wealth or poverty or fame or infamy, all the dualities that Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gita. And then Paribrahmans Tatra Nivindate Arthan. So simply, and I explained Paribrahman basically in Sanskrit is like saying in English, going around in circles. Pari means around, like perimeter. So Paribrahman, simply wandering around, going around in circles. Futility. It's the sense of futility. Tatra Nivindate Arthan, one never actually finds real meaning. So the word Arthan, of course, in contrast with apartheid, the mere names of material happiness and distress are aparta. The meaning, the value is not there. Whereas, so that therefore, by simply going around in circles with the Vedic injunctions or in general with material pursuits, one never actually finds things of real value. And one is simply shayanaha. One is simply sleeping in other in things made of maya, maye, vasariya, because of one's material desires. So that was the previous verse. And the reason I explained that is because the next verse starts with atta, therefore. So you can't understand the therefore unless you understand the argument that came before. So Krishna says, ataha, kavir, a wise person, a kavi. In later Sanskrit, by the time of Lord Chaitanya, kavi has come to mean a poet, and therefore sort of formal poetics at the time of Lord Chaitanya are called kavya, from the word kavi. And Lord Chaitanya, Rupa Goswami, for example, composed a lot of Sanskrit, Vidagdha Madhava, Lalita Madhava, which technically would be considered the Sanskrit genre of kavya, sort of sophisticated poetics. And you see a good example of this poetics in Lord Chaitanya's conversation with the Keshav Kashmiri Pandit, where you can see it's very technical. You have to really know Sanskrit. You have to know semantics. You have to know all kinds of things. So that kind of sort of court poetry or formal, sort of sophisticated poetics. But here the word kavi has an older original meaning, which simply means a wise person. A wise person. So atat kavi, therefore a kavi, a wise person, namasu, again in the names. And you can think the way we use the word label, like that's just a label. So again, in the names, namasu, jyavat artha, as much value as there is, syat, apramato, one should be apramata. Mata is maddened or crazy or foolish or distracted. That's and pramata means it's a serious case of it. So pra kind of makes it even worse. So here we have apramata. One should not be distracted, foolish, crazy, deluded. That's the idea. So one should be apramata, vyavasaya buddhi. And this is again, Shuka has already used this term, vyavasaya buddhi. Vyavasaya means you've made up your mind, you're determined, you're resolved, you don't go back. And of course, vyavasaya buddhi is in the famous Bhagavad Gita verse in chapter 2, that vyavasaya atmika buddhi. Atma means soul. And atmika, from the word atma, is like saying the very soul. So to say that Vyavasaya Atmika, when Atmika is used following a previous word, so for example, Vyavasaya Atmika in Sanskrit means that Vyavasaya or determination should be the very soul of your intelligence. Vyavasaya Atmika Buddhi. In other words, it should essentially be that. And so Vyavasaya Atmika Buddhi, intelligence, discernment, discrimination, being able to tell things apart. There are two kinds of intelligence. One is called synthetic. The other is what's the opposite of synthetic? My God. Anyway, it doesn't mean synthetic. It doesn't mean it's made out of nylon or something. It means you put things together. And the other one is analytic, where you take things apart. So there's two ways for understanding. One is you look at the big picture, like when you put everything together, what is it? And Krishna in chapter 18, verses 20 through 22, when you can also define it as worldview. Of course, the word jnana can mean many things, but in chapter 18 of the Gita, 20 through 22, it means worldview. So what's the big picture for you? Jnana. And then 10 verses later, that's 18, 20 through 22, in the three modes. And then in chapter 18, verses 30 through 32, Krishna talks about buddhi, which is not the big picture, taking everything apart. What are the different pieces? Analytic knowledge. And so you can see modern science, it's like they're suffering from the Humpty Dumpty syndrome. And that is they take everything apart, but they can't put it back together again. So they think that, and this is like real, God, try to use a nice word here. Real foolishness. It's like a child has some little toy and takes it apart and can't put it back together again. So science is good at breaking matter down into little pieces, but then they don't know what the big picture is. They have no idea what the big picture is, how physics and metaphysics interact, and so on. So anyway, so that's buddhi. That's buddhi, analytic intelligence, being rational. So here we have vyavasaya buddhi, buddhi which is determined. In other words, you figured out what the moving parts are from the material world. You understand, what are the different factors in your life, and you've made up your mind. You understand that certain things make me miserable, other things make me happy, and this is not merely psychological, it's not merely emotional, but certain things make me miserable for good reason, because I'm doing stupid things, and stupidity ultimately is miserable. So trying to exploit the material world rather than trying to use it for Krishna must cause misery. It's like if you walk into a store and you fill up your basket and just try to roll out without paying, something bad's going to happen to you. You're going to suffer. And so basically, material life is simply sort of a form of cosmic shoplifting. In other words, you sort of load up your basket with everything you want, including other people's bodies, and you don't pay for it. You think that you can just walk out with it. And then you act surprised when the security people, arrest you. Like, oh, really? Oh, I didn't know you had to pay for that. So that's anyway, on YouTube, these people, somehow they have these people at Walmart that try to steal things and then they bring them into a room. And so anyway, so vyavasaya buddhi means you've made up your mind, you've analyzed. This is what happens when I try to exploit the world. This is what happens when I try to use the world to serve Krishna. This is what happens when I'm serious about my spiritual life. This is what happens when I'm not serious. And then you just, put things in the balance and you draw your conclusions. And if you've been knocked around enough in this world, you become vyavasaya buddhi. And if someone hasn't reached that point, they'll have to be knocked around some more until they finally get the message. Mm. And then you become a serious devotee. So that's what it's about. So then the verse says, so one should be not crazy, not foolish, not distracted, and one should have determined intelligence. And Siddhe anyatarte najateta tatra. That's very interesting. Anyata. Anya means other or another. And in Sanskrit, all these adverbial senses are done by different endings. So, for example, ta, th long a, means manner, the manner in which something is done. So, yata means in which manner. Tata means in that manner or in that way. And katam means in which way. It's the question. And here we have anyata, in another way, in another way, in another manner. And sarvata, in every way. And so ta means manner, da means time. So yada, which time, tada, then at that time, kada, the question at which time, and so on and so forth. So here you have the word anyata, in another way, nayateta, one should not endeavor. One should not endeavor in any other way. One should not endeavor in any other way. Siddhe, for a perfection or for success, or anyata arte, or for some value, for some gain. Because we have all kinds of ideas about, I'll be happy if I can achieve this, or if I can get that, or if I can get this kind of material possession. And so siddha means like an achievement or success or perfection, or artha, something that we think has value. And if you look at the first line, atta kavir nama sujavat artha. So syat, in other words, other values, or javat artha, what really is valuable. Javat artha means what is really valuable, knowing what is really valuable. So then parishamang tatra samikshamanaha. So parishramam, shrama means laboring, like just wearing yourself out. That's shrama. And so an ashrama is where you rest, where you sort of de-stress, or in other words, a place where you go to rest and to be sort of to be free of all the labor and all the pain is called an ashrama. And so everyone's struggling in material life, and then you go to an ashram where you find peace. But anyway, so parishamang, here we have the verb, and pari, around in Sanskrit, can also mean like completely, or in other words, parishamang means just sort of like wearing yourself out, literally. If you want to, how it really sounds in Sanskrit, parishamang, just wearing yourself out, just exhausting yourself, parishamang. So parishamang tatra, therein, another in tatra, so wearing it, oh, tra is, by the way, place. Yatra, in which place? Tatra, in that place. Kutra, in the question, anyway. Sarvatra, in every place. So tra is the suffix that means place in Sanskrit. So tatra, therein, meanings in false endeavors, in trying to enjoy this world. You just wear yourself out. You just exhaust yourself for nothing. Parishamang tatra samikshamanaha. Ikshamana means looking, watching something, seeing it, like really looking at it. And that's what some means. Some together in Sanskrit, like Sankirtan, but some also means completely, like everything, like there's nothing left out. So samikshamana means really looking at it. Taking a good hard look at what's going on in your life and realizing that when I try to enjoy anything except service to Krishna, I just wear myself out, I suffer, I go half crazy, and on bad days, fully crazy. And so that's what it's saying here. Samikshamana, like take a good look at it and see what's really there. So now we'll chant it. And so I hope you have a better idea of what these words actually mean. So, atat kavir namasu javarartha. Is that a little high for the ladies? Atak Kavir Nama Sujavararta Syara Pramato Vyavasaya Buddhi Syara Pramato Vyavasaya Buddhi Parishramam Tatra Samikshamana Parishramam. Oh, whoops, I skipped one. Sorry. You very politely just didn't respond there. So, Siddhenyatarte najate tatra. Siddhenyatarte najate tatra. Siddhenyatarte najate tatra. Yatarte najate tatra. Parishramam tatra samikshamanaha. Parishamam tatra samikshamaanaha. So, any of the ladies or gentlemen, go ahead. Attakavir nama suryavararta. Syara pramato vyavasaya buddhi. Siddhenyatarte najate tatra. Parishamam tatra samikshamana.
Atakavir nama suyavararta.
Atakavir nama sujavararta.
Shara pramato vyavasaya buddhi.
Syara pramato vyavasaya buddhi.
Siddhenyatarte nayate tatra.
Siddhenyatarte najate tatra.
Parishramam tatra samikshamanaha.
Parishamam tatra samikshamana. Okay. I just had a thought as I was listening to you chant these verses, this verse, that it would be fascinating to go through the Bhagavatam and see the different personalities of the speakers, whether it's Shuka or Sutta or Shonaka, who's actually, I mean, Shonaka is amazing. The person, the leader of the assembly at Naimisharanya who speaks the Sutta. And of course, Narada and Brahma and Krishna and so many people. And because in this, these first two chapters of the second canto, if you really kind of look very closely at the Sanskrit, you can see Shuka's personality emerging. In other words, not just a great sage that speaks sort of generic Sanskrit verses, but he has his own personality. He has his own style, his own way of speaking. And that's really fascinating. So, I mean, that's what I'm seeing here in these first two chapters, Shuka's personality in the way he speaks, in the nature of these Sanskrit verses, which is fascinating. So, Prabhupada's translation and purport. Translation: for this reason, the enlightened person should endeavor only for the minimum necessities of life, which is javat-artha. Javat means sort of just enough. For the minimum necessities of life, while in the world of names. In other words, there's no real happiness or no real distress in this world. We're just kind of enjoying the name of something, like I'm rich, or we're suffering, I'm poor, this or that. We're just kind of dealing with names. He should be intelligently fixed and never endeavor for unwanted things, being competent to perceive practically that all such endeavors are merely hard labor for nothing. Parishramam, just hard labor. Navindate Prishramanta. So, Prabhupada's purport. The Bhagavad Dharma, or the cult of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, in the old sense of the word, we are all in a cult, which is related to the word culture, by the way. Like cultivate. It's a community in which you cultivate something. In the cult of Srimad Bhagavatam, so this Bhagavad Dharma is perfectly distinct from the way of fruitive activities, which are considered by the devotees to be merely a waste of time. The whole universe, or for that matter, all material existence, is moving on as Jagat. And of course, Prabhupada referring to the fact that Jagat means literally something that's moving on, because Ga means to go in Sanskrit, like Gati, Gachati. And so Jagat is actually from the word which means to go or move. So the whole universe, or for that matter, all material existence, is moving on as Jagat, simply for planning business, to make one's position very comfortable or secure, although everyone sees that this existence is neither comfortable nor secure, and can never become comfortable or secure at any stage of development. These are brilliant realizations by Prabhupada, and I mean, Prabhupada's powerful realization just comes through in these words. Those who are captivated by the illusory advancement of material civilization, following the way of phantasmagoria. Think of the word phantom, like a ghost, something which is just, it has no real substance. So those who are following this are certainly madmen. I mean, who talks like that? Except Prabhupada, especially about this spiritual knowledge from India. They're madmen. The whole material creation is a jugglery of names only. In fact, it is nothing but a bewildering creation of matter, like earth, water, and fire. The buildings, furniture, cars, bungalows, which in England means like a standalone house, isn't it? I think that's, yeah. Bungalows, mills, factories, in industries, peace, war, or even the highest perfection of material science, namely atomic energy and electronics, are all simply bewildering names of material elements with their concomitant reactions of the three modes. Since the devotees of the Lord, since the devotee of the Lord knows them perfectly well, he is not interested in creating unwanted things for a situation which is not at all reality, but simply names of no more significance than the babble of sea waves. These are amazing purports, aren't they? The babble of sea waves. The great kings, leaders, and soldiers fight with one another, especially nowadays, in order to perpetuate their names in history. They are forgotten in due course of time, and they make a place for another era, and they make a place, in other words, they give way for another era in history. But the devotee realizes how much history and historical persons are useless products of flickering time. The fruitive worker aspires after a big fortune in the matter of wealth, woman, and worldly adoration. But those who are fixed in perfect reality are not at all interested in such false things. For them, it is all a waste of time. Since every second of human life is important, an enlightened man should be very careful to utilize time very cautiously. 1 second of human life is 1 second of human life wasted in the vain research of planning for happiness in the material world can never be replaced, even if one spends millions of coins of gold. Therefore, the transcendentalist desiring freedom from the clutches of Maya or the illusory activities of life is warned herewith not to be captivated by the external features of fruitive actors. Human life is never meant for sense gratification, but for self-realization. Srimad Bhagavatam instructs us solely on this subject from the very beginning to the end. Human life is simply meant for self-realization. The civilization which aims at this utmost perfection never indulges in creating unwanted things, and such a perfect civilization prepares men only to accept the bare necessities of life or to follow the principle of the best use of a bad bargain. Our material bodies and our lives in that connection are bad bargains because the living entity is actually spirit, and spiritual advancement of the living entity is absolutely necessary. So people look in the mirror, people are so vain, they want to, buy this and buy that, and cosmetics and fashion. And Prabhupada is saying it's simply a bad bargain. So it's just wasting their life decorating the machine that covers them. Human life is intended for the realization of this important factor, and one should act accordingly, accepting only the bare necessities of life and depending more on God's gift without diversions of human energy for any other purpose, such as being mad for material enjoyment. The materialistic advancement of civilization is called the civilization of the demons, quote unquote, which ultimately ends in wars and scarcity. The transcendentalist is specifically warned herewith to be fixed in mind, so that even if there's difficulty in plain living and high thinking, he will not budge even an inch from his stark determination. For a transcendentalist, it is a suicidal policy to be intimately in touch with the sense gratifiers of the world. A suicidal policy, because such a policy will frustrate the ultimate goal of life. Shukadev Goswami met Maharaj Parikshit when the latter felt a necessity for such a meeting. It is the duty of a transcendentalist to help persons who desire real salvation and to support the cause of salvation. One might note that Shukadev Goswami never met Maharaj Parikshit while he was ruling as a great king. For a transcendentalist, the mode of activities is explained in the next sloka, which we'll read tomorrow. So, thank you for listening. Any questions on these points? Brilliant, brilliant purport. No questions? Yes.
One thing that I just thought of towards the end, you were reading, like suicide,
Yes.
and then also in the Gita, Krishna mentions that one is a killer of the soul.
That's an Isopanishad.
Oh, that's an Ishopanishad, thank you. So it's interesting, of course, we know the soul is eternal.
Yes, that's a figure of speech. You kill. In other words, if you're Krishna conscious, you're living as a soul. So what you kill is your life as a soul, because when you false ego means you take on that identity. So for all practical purposes, you're a dog. I mean, you're not a dog because you're a soul, but even if you were a dog, it wouldn't be any better. I mean, it wouldn't be any worse. It's just because that's the beauty of this supreme virtual reality machine called the material world or material bodies, that you experience what it would be like if you were a dog. Because otherwise, the technology would be imperfect. But since Krishna makes it, the technology is perfect. It's perfect technology. And therefore, you actually experience exactly what it would be like if you were a dog, or you were a material man or woman or blah, 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 all this stuff. And so, yeah, it's amazing technology. And so, in that sense, practically, for the time that we're stuck down here, it is like killing the soul. So it's a figure of speech. Anything else?
I noticed something.
Uh-oh.
No. I thought it was neat. This word parishramam is, we said it's like exhausting someone else, or exhausting oneself from working hard. It's like a play from the past verse, the previous verse, parishramams,
Mm.
which means to just kind of go around in circles. So it's like continuation of that idea. You're just going around in circles, you're just tiring yourself out.
Yeah, very good. Excellent. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And yeah, Paribrahman Tatra. Actually, confirming what you said, which is a really good observation, is that both the word Paribrahman and Parishramam are followed by the word Tatra. So yeah, you're exactly right. Paribramang tatra, parishramang tatra. That's really good. So someone just runs around in circles until they just completely exhaust themselves. Sounds like a great life, huh? So yeah, very good. Yeah, that's the way we should read the Bhagavatam. Paribramang tatra, the vindate artan, then parishamang tatra, samikshamana. Yes. The Bhagavata is famous among scholars, even non-devotee scholars, as just being incredibly brilliant composition. It's famous as literature, as one of the most brilliant or the most brilliant piece of Sanskrit literature. And so, if for someone who takes the trouble to learn a little Sanskrit, you find amazing things in the Bhagavatam. And so we come from this most distinguished tradition. If you think about it, you have this coming together not only of the highest spiritual knowledge as presented by Lord Chaitanya, the highest spiritual knowledge in the universe, but it's expressed in the Bhagavatam in the most brilliant composition. So, so the correct response to that is not to de-emphasize education and just emphasize rituals, which seems to be the fashion nowadays. But so that's what ISKCON should be, actually, is a movement which, of course, worships Krishna and builds temples and all that. It should be a movement that is that trains people to become the educational and philosophical leaders of the world. Prabhupada said, we talk about this a lot, but someone must be hearing, listening. It's like you're trapped on some planet, an astronaut in the future, and you keep sending out radio signals. Is anyone there? Someone listening? But the point is, when Prabhupada came, he said the reason, the socio-historical purpose of Prabhupada coming was to reestablish a class of true brahmanas, because the head of society had collapsed, just brain disease. There was no head in society, headless. So now we have this amazing situation of a headless body, the world, and ISKCON, a disembodied head. A head that can't figure out where the body is or how to attach to it. And the head is very intelligently thinking, okay, we'll just float around here, and the body has to come to us and attach if they're serious. It's an absurd situation. And so we, a Brahmana, and so how could you have a Brahmin society that gives so little attention and so little money to education? What kind of Brahmin society is that? It's more like a Vaishya society that just is interested in collecting money and building fancy temples. And as far as education, yeah, whatever. So is this kind of Brahminical society? You could say it is. Well, you say we follow certain principles, or at least the serious practitioners do. But does ISKCON, in its practical activities, emphasize, put in the center, education? And, if you follow the money trail, I think the obvious answer is no. Yes?
Yeah, maybe to play devil's advocate, it's commonly said that,
Please do.
yeah, no one really joins for philosophy. People are more interested in prasadam and friendship and kirtan.
Yeah, Shudras, that's true. Yeah, if you want to have the International Society for Shudras, yes, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Yep.
Actually, Lord Chaitanya, he appeared as a scholar, and he attracted scholars. And the reason this movement is going on, the reason there even is a Hare Krishna movement that didn't just dissipate, into all kinds of absurd philosophical deviations, which happened. I mean, if you look at the history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, there were deviations. Not only the Sahajas, all kinds of nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference is that because Lord Chaitanya's movement had so many powerful scholars, those deviations never took over. They always remained marginal. And if you have a movement that doesn't have so many scholars, the deviations become central, and that's how religions become destroyed over time.
Mm-hmm.
My personal experiences in the preaching field is that, yes, when you make an intelligent presentation, I don't mean a very technical academic presentation, which, I mean, who can stand that? But when I make an intelligent philosophical, I get letters every day from people saying, thank God, now I can actually join the Hare Krishna movement.
Mm-hmm.
One person who was actually a philosophy professor joined our movement, became my disciple, and said, I'm so happy to see that I can join ISKCON and still keep my intelligence.
I have a follow-up question.
Yeah, well, I'm not finished.
Okay. Just letting you know.
Yeah, thank you. That's your hand. So, I have a completely different experience. I find that many intelligent people, I find that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people out there who will only become Vaishnavas if they're given an intelligent explanation. So this dismissive, arrogant, caste Brahmin view, just let them eat cake, let them eat cake prasadam. That, we're intelligent, we have philosophy, everyone in the world out there is just an idiot, so just give them some food and little kirtan. Yeah, you get what you pay for.
Yeah, I have another follow-up, but that's okay.
Okay,
Well, just,
on this topic.
how would you, on this topic, how would you respond to someone saying, well, what we're doing here, Bhagavatam class, and which also happens in most ISKCON temples, is education?
Yes, of course it is.
Well, I guess if you're saying that.
Yeah, but giving a Bhagavatam class
Hmm.
in our jargon, not you have to censor this one. Giving a Bhagavatam class in our jargon, not relating it intelligently to what's going out in the world, it's just preaching to the choir. You can even get Bhakti Shastra degrees in ISKCON, which basically qualify you to preach to the already converted.
Got it.
When Prabhupada came to this country, he didn't speak Bengali, he spoke English. There are not only, languages like English or Spanish or Hindi, there are cultural languages. You have to speak the cultural language of the place you're in. You have to address the issues that people really care about. It's only because of ignorance of Gaudiya Vaishnava history that one may not realize that Rupa Goswami and Sanatan, they were directly honing in, they were focusing on things that were important to people back then. Someone may think, no, they were just giving the philosophy. No, they weren't just giving the philosophy. They were specifically speaking in a language that was current among intellectuals. For example, there are many different there are many different styles of Sanskrit. For example, there's philosophical Sanskrit, which has its own jargon. There's Kavya, which has its own style, sort of poetics. And if you look at Rupa Goswami, for example, he was the master of a certain style of Sanskrit, which was popular at the time. It's called Kavya. When I was at Harvard, I took a whole class in Kavya. I took a whole class at Harvard just in that kind of Sanskrit. And then I took another class in philosophical Sanskrit, which is very different. The language of commentaries. There's a certain jargon in Sanskrit used just for philosophy. And also there's a commentarial jargon. There are many different things. And so what we find is that whether it's Jiva Goswami and Sanatan and Vishwanath, in their commentary, they mastered commentarial Sanskrit. Vishwanath also mastered poetics. And so what we find is that these people, whether it's the six Goswamis, all highly educated at the top level of education. Lord Chaitanya signals, Lord Chaitanya indicates what needs to be done in a particular age by the way he appears. So because 5,000 years ago, what was needed was for a lot of heads to roll, because all these millions of demons invaded the earth to use it as a Death Star, if you know Star Wars, to take over the universe. And so Krishna came as a Kshatriya. Balaram came as a Kshatriya. His most important devotees in his mission were the Pandavas. This is the structure of Krishna Lila. You find it in the Adi Lila of Chaitanya. You find it in the first part of Krishna Lila. When Krishna appears in the world, the first several years of his life, he shows intimate pastimes for the advanced devotees. Krishna in Vrindavan, Lord Chaitanya in Navadvip. Then once he's established the ultimate intimate Leela, he goes out into the world and he fixes things. He fixes the world. Just as Krishna says, Paritranaya Sadhunam, and so on. So Krishna, the particular way he's going to fix the world is revealed by the Varna he appears in. So when Krishna had to fix the world by literally cutting heads off, he came as a Kshatriya. And his devotees, who were the most important servants to fix the world, came as Kshatriyas, the Pandavas, the Yadus. And so it's significant that when Krishna came as Chaitanya, he's going to fix the world in a different way. And that's why he came in the mood of Radharani. You know, there were some people who don't understand our philosophy very well, although they thought they were great acharyas. And they said things like, yes, we're not interested in Krishna as the preacher, Krishna as the teacher. We're interested in Lord Chaitanya relishing Radha Bhava. This is a very, how should I put it, incorrect, I'll be nice, thing to say. Because if Krishna wants to experience the mood of Radharani, why in the world would he do it in the material world? You know, you talk about Raganuga and all this stuff. What is more intimate than personally experiencing Radharani's ecstasy? I mean, I'll wait a second if someone wants to, propose something which is more advanced or intimate. So why in the world would you do that in the material world? Why would you do that? Not only in the material world, but on a lower middle class planet. And not only that, but in the material world on a lower middle class planet in the Kali Yuga when everyone's degraded. Why would you choose that as the place to experience the highest ecstasy? Because it's the mood of Radharani that inspires Krishna not to cut anyone's head off, but to actually be merciful to very degraded people. So therefore, there's an inseparable connection between these two aspects of Krishna Lila, Chaitanya Lila, namely to relish Radha Bhava and to save the degraded souls of Kali Yuga. Those are inseparable purposes. They're two aspects of the same purpose. And so therefore to say we're not interested in Lord Chaitanya's preaching Lila, just relishing Radha Bhava, is to completely misunderstand our philosophy. And that's why the people who just want to go sit in Radha Kund and they think that's more advanced have totally misunderstood Chaitanya's appearance in this world. So, I thought I'd mention that. So therefore, in this age, if you want to help Krishna, if you think you're on the level of the gopis, not aspiring, I don't mean like one of these, nowadays we have gopiologists in the Hare Krishna movement, but I mean, if you really think that you are on that level and you were beyond preaching, which Prabhupada never thought he was, and Bhakti Siddhanta never thought he was. But if you think, you've gone beyond the great acharyas, then yeah, go to Radha Kund and knock yourself out. But if we actually want to follow the great acharyas, then we understand it's the mood of Radharani, it's her mercy, it's Radha's mercy that leads us to try to spread this movement. In fact, I've told the story before. I remember, many, many years ago, so a devotee, I think around 72 or something, 73, a devotee wrote a letter to Prabhupada asking, because there was a controversy in New Dwarka in LA, because some devotees were preaching that when you go out on Sankirtan, when you go out to preach, you're in the mood of Radharani, because Radha is so pure that she wants to bring other souls to Krishna. And others said, no, that's, that's, I don't know, you're not on that platform. You can't claim that. So they wrote a letter to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada wrote back and he said, yes, the people that said that when you go out to preach, you're in the mood of, you're actually following Radha, he said, they're correct. Because that's the mood of bringing people to Krishna. Selflessly bringing people to Krishna. Of course, going out can be many things. It can be writing books. It can be all kinds of things. So, going out means going out of one's selfish little world. So this is like, it's amazing that the selfish people think they're in Radha Bhava or so. The selfish people think they're most advanced because they just want to, meditate on these things. They're neophytes. They're actually neophytes and they think they're most advanced. And for my money, I'll take as most advanced Prabhupada. And, let's follow Prabhupada. That's what it means that he's the founder of Acharya. So quickly, it's going to end here.
Well, just to go a little further, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, he gave the analogy to describe himself and his relationship to Gorkishore Das Babaji, that he was just the electric lines, and Gorkishore Das Babaji was the powerhouse of spiritual
Yes.
Shakti.
Actually, since you brought up Bhaktisiddhanta, I've told this before, I'll just do it very quickly and then we'll end. And that is, a Prabhupada person told me, I was walking one day with Prabhupada, and he personally told me the story that I think we were walking in India, but I can't remember where we were. But Bhaktisiddhanta had planned a preaching trip to Vrindavan. He was going to stay 1 month in Vrindavan and lecture. And Bhaktisiddhanta heard that the Babajis at Radhakund were all excited. Oh, because now the great Acharya is coming, now we'll really get the nectar. And Bhaktisiddhanta was informed of this, that these Radhakunda Babajis were thinking that. So he went there to Vrindavan, and for 1 month, the Prabhupada personally told me this, for 1 month, every day he lectured on the first verse of the Bhagavatam. So the people who actually are relishing these advanced pastimes, they're very discreet, and they don't, like show off, like you've got it, flaunt it, as some people who claim to be great devotees. So, thank you very much. And thank you for that point you brought. Hare Krishna. Jai Devki.